Hi, and welcome to Two CPAs and the Mic, the podcast where we talk tax, finance, and all things related to business. Whether you're a business owner, working professional, or someone who wants to start a career in accounting, this is the podcast for you. Hosted by CCK Strategies partners Jeff Frable and Sarah Mays, we dive into relevant business and tax matters with working professionals to make these topics less intimidating, relatable, and dare we say fun? Let's get down to business.
Welcome to this week's edition of Two CPAs and the Mic. My name is Jeff Frable. I'm a partner at CCK Strategies. And as always, we are so glad that you are joining us. We are talking about relevant business and tax topics. We're using straight talk and practical information, and hopefully not all the stuffiness and jargon that's generally associated with our profession. As always, I have my wonderful co-host, Sarah Mays. What's up, Mays?
Hey, Frable. I like how you say, hopefully, we don't have all of the jargon.
Yeah.
We don't have jargon.
I throw it in there just in case we mess up.
Valid, but we don't. We're pretty straight talkers.
We're pros now, I think.
Yes. Yes.
The way it goes. And always is KP. Hi, KP.
Hi, Jeff.
Hi.
I happened to notice that you called Sarah wonderful.
Well, let me tell you about that. So we had spring break here last week in Oklahoma. And so my wife and I took a road trip to go visit our girls. And I actually got her to listen to 3 of our episodes. If you're a regular listener, you know these kind of put her to sleep. She's really not in the business world. But I made her listen to 3 episodes, and she didn't hate them. She really liked them.
Which ones?
But the Addictive Leadership,
okay.
Ooh, good
Josh Juarez,
Great.
and then Lisa Riley.
Nice.
Okay. So,
Good
but
ones.
what I did learn is that I use the term amazing a lot. I mean,
Ooh.
I talked about the amazing episode and our amazing guests, and I was just like, Jeff, you got to stop using that word, amazing. So that's why she's wonderful this week.
So, Jeff, if you want to go back and call me amazing in my intro,
Okay.
I'm okay with that.
Okay. We will edit that. But the other really cool part about our trip is, guess where we stopped for gas on this trip?
Effingham.
We stopped in Effingham. Yes.
Yes.
And we even stopped at that Effingham Quick Trip.
QT. Yes.
Yes.
So
Yes.
Oh, Lisa
go
Riley.
go back and listen to the Lisa Riley episode, and you'll hear about our appeal to Effingham to be a major sponsor on this podcast. But you know, that's also where they have a big cross there at Effingham. Yeah, like off the side of the highway. So
It's a biggie.
it's a biggie. It's a big cross. Yeah, it really is. So anyway, QT Effingham, you had a resident celebrity stop by last
Nice.
week, and they never knew it because it was about the middle of the night. Anyway,
Oh, man, you didn't get to
Mikey,
do
I'm
autographs
sorry.
or
Just
anything?
starting.
no,
I'm sorry.
no autographs. So, but it was the QT in Effingham. So
Nice.
anyway, all right, we will
You should
bounce off
have in
that.
the bathroom put Frable was here.
Two CPAs in the mic.
With some liquid whiteout, a liquid
Yeah.
vapor.
Yes.
Well, let's hope today's episode is as amazing and fun as this discussion is going. But
Yes.
we have another great guest today. I think it goes without saying that we talk all the time on this podcast about divine intervention, divine appointments, and God connecting the dots and all that kind of stuff. And today is no different. Today we have Mikey Manghum on the show. Mikey is a VP and financial advisor with Regent Private Wealth here in Tulsa. But more than anything else, Mikey Manghum is an incredible man. He is a friend of mine. And the reason I talk about the divine appointments and the divine meetings is because years ago, Mikey was a D1 athlete, was a basketball player with the ORU Golden Eagles. And my son and I watched him for 4 years from the stands. And we loved Mikey Manghum. He seemed like a really cool kid at the time. And then we got hooked up at a Tulsa Chamber event, and we've been good buddies ever since. We get together and have some discussion and talks about families and life and the workspace and all that kind of stuff. So Mikey Manghum, welcome to the podcast. We're excited to have you today, sir.
Thanks for having me. It's an honor to be here. And I will say, we are good buddies now, but originally Jeff was kind of a mentor of mine out of college. So it is probably best. You know, he said he thought I seemed like a pretty cool kid. It's probably good that he didn't know me too well because there was a lot of stuff still being figured out at the college age, you know, but I think I'd like to think now it's a very established young man you've got before you today. So
well, we're going to get into that, Mike. Let everybody know you're not perfect, but we're going to talk today, as we always say, if you're an entrepreneur or someone in the profession that's lacing up their shoes to go for a walk, go for a run, we're going to be talking about money. We're going to be talking about mentorship, and we're going to be talking about the meaning of life, what really matters. And Mikey is a great individual to talk about these things because as a financial advisor, he is dealing with one of those areas that everybody gets worried about. How do we take care of our money? But he's got some very unique thoughts and insight to all that. But like I said, we're going to be talking about money, mentorship, meaning, all that kind of fun stuff. So Mikey, we're glad we got you today. At a very high level, sir, just kind of give us some background and talk about that Oklahoma accent you got there.
Yeah. So obviously not from Tulsa. This is more of a panhandle accent for those that are familiar with that part of the state. No, my dad's American. He played professional basketball in Scotland. So he met my mum there. I was born in Scotland and then raised in England. So central England, if anyone's visited, they may be familiar with the city of Derby. It is pronounced Derby. Americans might say Derby because it's Derby. But there's your inside scoop. It is actually Derby. And grew up watching him play basketball. My mom's been an educator my whole life. So I was that unique basketball player that had good grades and was able to get over here to play college basketball, trying to follow in my dad's footsteps. My body kind of gave up a little bit earlier than his did. So now a Tulsa resident, a proud Tulsa resident, 17 years after first gracing Tulsa. But yeah, that's it. It started off in the UK and made my way over here for college ball and stuck around.
Well, we'll start talking a little bit about your family. You said your dad played pro ball in Scotland and your mom was an educator. Talk just a little bit about your dad's career there, because not everybody has a dad that played pro sports. So how long did he play and what was his career like?
That's a great question. He actually didn't have a very traditional route to professional basketball. So he won a state championship in Nevada for the school that he was at in high school. His dad was actually stationed at Nellis Air Force Base. So most of his family's from San Antonio, Texas, and Louisiana area, but he grew up in Las Vegas. So won a state championship in high school and then went to Dixie College in Utah, which at the time was just a JUCO, transferred to Malone, which was a D3 in Ohio, but ended up not finishing his time there. Went back home, was working for the DA's office as a security guy, was actually playing in one of the Pro-Am leagues that happen in a lot of major cities. You have these pros that come back during the summer and they're playing against guys that are up and coming in high school or in college. And so he was playing in a Pro-Am league, and I think his team was like a first responders team, but they threw him in there as a security guard. Basically got picked up from there, played a year in the Philippines, a year in El Salvador. Cool. Yeah. And then the next tropical location was Falkirk, Scotland. Yeah. So had the opportunity to go over there and played in the top league in the UK for many years, but he actually played semi-professionally. He had to correct me on this a couple of weeks ago because I was telling someone he played semi-professionally till he was 43. And he said, no, I played semi-professionally till I was 47.
Wow.
So he has bionic knees. I don't know how he did it, but yeah, so they had me in their 30s. And so a lot of times, a kid born in that phase of life doesn't get to see their parent compete at that level. But I was still fortunate enough to see him playing some lower levels and then play semi-professionally, and never forget being on the court before games, helping him stretch, rebound, being in the locker room after. That's kind of where the love of it was manufactured for me, just seeing that there could be a lifestyle from that and the community that came with it. So that's really what inspired the basketball dream for me.
That's so cool.
Well, I think that's a great segue, Mikey, to kind of go into your D1 years. So I always joke about my son Andrew and I would watch. We went to every ORU home game for probably about 10 years. And you know what it's like. You get some of these guys on the other team that seem a little dweeby and all that kind of stuff. And when you sit on the court at half court, you kind of start chirping at these guys. And I would always tell my son, well, that no matter how dweeby that guy looks, he's scored 2 more points in D1 basketball than I will ever.
That's right.
I will ever score. So Talk a little bit, because I think this plays really well into the further conversation we have, but talk a little bit about the roles you play on the teams, because you were not necessarily the star on the team, but you played a very important role. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's probably helpful to back up a little bit to how I even got to ORU in the first place, playing Division I basketball. We did not know how the system worked over here, like being recruited in high school, prep schools, JUCO. We did not. My dad was so far removed from that he just didn't know. And so I had seen, obviously in the UK, they started airing the NCAA tournament, which is going right now for those that might be listening after the fact. It's going right now. And so I had seen that in the UK as a teenager. And so I basically made a list of every team I'd seen play in the NCAA Division I March Madness tournament. And most of those athletic departments got my academic transcript and my game film. Okay. No one was recruiting English players for basketball. Soccer, maybe, not basketball. Right. So I ended up getting an opportunity to come over as a preferred walk-on for ORU. So I was not coming in as a scholarship guy. I had to take that first year and really put on some weight. It was a different style of basketball than I was used to. And so I just had to adapt to all of that, and then eventually was able to earn a full ride scholarship. But even in that, it's like, hey, you weren't brought in to shoot 20 shots a game. You're going to be, knock down the open three, run the offense, and play defense. Like whoever the best guard is, a point guard or a shooting guard on the other team, we need you to lock him down best you can when you're out there. And so I just owned those roles. Like if that's what they're telling me to do, let's just go be excellent at that. And then hopefully that leads to playing time. And as you and Andrew got to see, like the more I got into my career, the more time I got on the court, those games I got to start. So it turned into a pretty cool opportunity.
I think I remember you telling me a story where you took a shot at the end of the game once that you really shouldn't have.
Man. Yeah.
Give the short version of that story. Yes. It's really pretty common.
So it was my freshman year. I was supposed to be redshirted, but we had two guards tear their ACLs. So basically I had to come back up our third string point guard at that point. And back in England, back in my country, I had the green light. And so I was still adapting to this whole play your role thing a little bit. And I fancied myself as a decent 3-point shooter. So it's conference tournament time, which, every shot in a conference tournament is a big shot. Every possession matters. And so I was in there to give our point guard a breather, and they swung the ball to the top of the key. I was about 5 feet behind the 3-point line. I let it fly. And I missed, and I was immediately yanked to the bench. And the assistant coach comes over and he said, son, I can't use all of his language, but son, that was an ill-advised shot. You're a great shooter. You're going to shoot a lot of shots while you're here in an ORU uniform. That was not the right one. Know your role when you're out there next time. I said, yes, sir.
So have you ever used that with a teammate in the office atmosphere there, Mikey, about that's just not your role? Maybe you should try something different?
Yeah, probably not quite as blunt as that. If anything, I'm probably encouraging teammates. You know what I mean? Like I use the term a lot, shooters shoot. Like if you are in a position to play a certain role, that's what we've hired you to do. We know you're equipped and capable of doing it. Don't ask for permission. You've been equipped for that. You're skilled in that lane. Go for it. Like ask for forgiveness if you mess up, but don't ask for permission. That's probably, it's more the opposite of what I'm advising as opposed to, hey, pipe down, know your role. We're normally having to encourage people along to get out of the shell. Yeah. Not everyone's pulling a 35-footer like me as a freshman, So.
Well, what other things from that D1 experience started to set the stage for you in the business world, Mikey?
It's interesting. I just had this conversation with some friends a couple months ago. We were talking about how your experience in sports translates into the professional world. And I don't know that I was proactively thinking about that when I was still in uniform. Probably the moment that it struck me where there's translatability here was when I was working my first full-time job post-grad school. And it was the first time I wasn't having to go to class at night, and I wasn't, I didn't have to go to practice. I wasn't having to get shots up. I wasn't having to be super worried about my nutrition. I remember going to the office one day. We started at 9 and I got there about 8:30, 8:45, and then everyone left at 5 and we went home, and I was like, is that it? Is that all we have to, just 9 to 5? That's it.
That's pretty easy.
And people were complaining about it. I'm like, this is so easy.
Right.
I'm like, just a couple months ago, I was having to set an alarm for 5 o'clock to go run till I felt nauseous and eat so much protein and then go to class and then lift weights. And then there was stuff at night and study hall. And I'm like, wow, my day's done at 5. This is fantastic. And in that kind of mode, I'm like, I'm just going to outwork everyone around me because everyone's just complaining about the workload they have.
Right.
And it feels light to me because of how I've been training for the last 22 years. And so I think that's probably the primary theme that I've seen professionally is just not afraid of the work. Mm-hmm. And I have this kind of thought in the back of my head, I'll just outlast people and be committed and consistent and reliable.
So, Mikey, you played in front of probably millions of people, right? Or at least thousands for sure.
Sure.
What's it like handling the pressure of being in front of all those people? And how does that translate in any way to the business world, or the things that you learned back then that help you cope differently now?
Yeah. So I think, I don't know which coach originally coined it, but like pressure is a privilege, right? So if you're in a position where there is pressure, it's an honor and a privilege to be carrying that. I will say it is a little bit different playing in front of like 26,000. 26,000, I think, was the most. We went and played at Louisville in their old arena when they had Rick Pitino still as a coach. He's now St. John's coach.
Right.
And it was loud in there. And I was genuinely intimidated by just kind of the atmosphere, having watched them on TV. And so once you've been in experiences like that, going into a boardroom or preparing for a big client meeting, just it doesn't seem as scary or intimidating. Right. So that's definitely a benefit. But it's also very different, right? Because on a basketball court, it's almost like my safe haven. Like I can block out everything that's happening outside of those lines. Whereas when you are in those like one-on-one situations, all eyes are on you and it's about the conversation that you're having. So I actually remember in my first kind of business development sales role I had, because I wasn't straight into this industry out of college, having some social anxiety. And I ended up having to go to therapy for it because it was like I would imagine talking with a guy who's in a business development role and he just starts profusely sweating when he talks to you. It's like, well, I'm not buying whatever that guy's selling. And it had nothing to do, like I wasn't really, it was a consulting firm I worked for. So there was no widget I was selling. It was more of kind of a contractual opportunity, but I had to go chat with someone about that. And it was tied to very different things. But there's some ways in which the pressure and the noise and the yelling allows you to kind of block the periphery out when you're preparing in the business setting. And then there's other ways where it's very different and it's not a natural translation from basketball court to boardroom.
Yeah. Well, we had a guest on before whose husband pitched in D1 baseball, I guess at Tennessee. And so she talked about how he can deal with pressure, how he could have everyone yelling at him and he just blocks it out. So that's something that a lot of us wish we could do, but not many of us can do for sure. But before we transfer out of this D1 conversation, and just so our audience knows that you weren't just a guy that came in for 2 or 3 minutes a game, you have a special place in our heart, my son and I, because how many 3-pointers was it that you sunk in a row that one night? Was it 6? 6? It was 6. Yeah.
That was a very fun night. For those listening, I got to be honest about this. The reason I sunk them is because I was wide open. I mean, South Dakota decided to play a triangle and 2. If you know anything about basketball, nobody in college plays triangle and 2 or box and 1. And the idea is that the 1 or the 2 are face guarding the best players or the most offensive threats from the other team. And the other 3 or 4 are kind of in this zone against the rest of the team. So they decided to play a triangle and 2, and they wanted to face guard Dominique Morrison and Warren Niles, rightfully so. Those were our green light guys. They probably averaged 20. And they're like, this guy, this British guy, point guard, averages 3 or 4 points. Like he should be playing soccer. So we're just going to leave him open, right?
Okay.
And sure enough, I went 6 for 6 from the 3-point line, all in the first half, because in the second half, I got the triangle and 2 treatment, and then I got face guarded. But that was a very fun night. It was a very fun night.
Well, and there's probably no better team to do that against than South Dakota, maybe North Dakota State. But if you're a Summit League fan, you know we don't like the Dakotas. So.
Anyone with Dakota at the end of their name or in their name somewhere, we took great pride in beating.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
And if anyone is listening from there, we really like you guys.
Yeah.
Great people. And here's what I say: you show up in droves for your teams, which I can appreciate now. Being on the other side. I hated it when I was playing, but honestly, like the amount of South Dakota State fans specifically that come down to Tulsa when they play us at home, it's very impressive. I mean, they have a great fan base. It's just so annoying to go play in front of them.
Yes,
Jeff,
absolutely.
May I ask a question before we move on to the next one? Mikey, as a team player, so when you were talking about your first BD role and you clammed up and you mentioned sweaty hands and all of that stuff, did you find though that there are some individual sports, golf, let's just use golf, you're used to that one-on-one and you're used to relying on your skill. And if you're on a team, your individual score goes towards that. Whereas on a team, you're so ingrained that you have to truly lean into each other. You know each other's weakness, you know each other's strengths, you know when to encourage. If you have an ACL tear and you're a senior and you have to be on the sidelines, that you need to be cheering louder because it's just so ingrained. As you were going through that initial career when you were transitioning, did you miss your team?
I did. That, honestly, that's such a great question, Christy. But I think the camaraderie that comes from like going to war with those guys, people get to see us play on the court, right? And it's fun for the fans, but they have no idea what you go through in like preseason conditioning, the 2-a-days, 3-a-days of practice. And not all of the guys on the team had a very close personal relationship with, but there's something about that brotherhood that happens like in the locker room and on the court. It's very hard to replace. It's probably why, and I know we'll talk about some intentionality later, why I've sought out mentorship and close friendships, like covenant friendships, is because I was just built for that. And I practiced in that for, yes, my college years, but probably another decade before it too. So you're right. I think part of the transition has been mentally, when I am in a one-on-one situation, now I almost see like my family as the team. And whereas at ORU, I was a role player, it's like, no, you're the green light guy. You have been called to lead your household and it's on you. Like the book stops with you. So yes, Olivia, my wife's going to play a role. The boys, as they get older, are going to play an amazing role. But like it's coming through you, El Capitan. So I think that was some of the switch, right? Is going from role to lead player in a different facet of life.
Nice.
Good stuff, Mikey.
Mm-hmm. So Mikey, you were at ORU for 2009 through about 2012.
Yeah.
So
13,
so you've been out in the either grad school or in the business world for 13, 14 years now. As we start to move towards that first M, the money, tell us a little bit about your career, because I think you were doing something. You are a financial advisor, but that has grown over the years from the way you were to the way you are now. So kind of talk through that process, the things that you learned and how you've developed.
Yeah. I always felt called to this industry. I actually had an elective course freshman year at ORU that was personal financial planning. And I hate to over spiritualize it at a place like ORU, but it was like a Moses in the burning bush moment in that syllabus class. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is what I want to do with my career, marketplace ministry. Can't wait to do it. But like every young 20-something out of college, I didn't find the dream thing right away. And so I gave up hope for a while. During grad school, was working at a State Farm office, which is a great place to learn the insurance side of the industry and cut your teeth and be picking up the phone and, doing all those kind of things. Then went to a management consulting firm for several years, had great experience there. It's a boutique firm in Tulsa called the Persimmon Group, and worked there under some incredible people, like folks that had been rock stars in the room at each of their respective prior careers are now all in one place. And I'm just gleaning that wisdom. And then started to transition into the financial industry, started more on, again, kind of the life insurance side of the house, but quickly when I got to that firm, tried to get licensed so I could be as well-rounded as possible, started pursuing CFP designation. And as I learned more about the industry and where I think the gaps are, this word is so overused, but that idea of like a holistic advisor has become more of like what I'm really trying to pursue. You guys are probably very familiar with how family offices work. But the idea of a family office is that someone is speaking to all these different potential silos in your financial world and trying to bring a cohesive game plan together. And unfortunately, for those of us that aren't at a family office level of wealth, that really doesn't exist for middle market. So really where I'm at now is trying to bring almost that fractional or quasi family office style of planning to folks that aren't quite worth 20 million yet, but maybe you're aspiring to be. So I think some of that comes from the ORU, like creating whole persons, right? It's like, let's not leave any of these gaps because they're all important. They all play a role. right back to the idea of different roles being played. But I feel like it's very hard for people to trust in the financial world, especially younger folks. And honestly, being a person of color, people of color coming into this space. And so how can I be a bridge to the resources I know they need? If they're only going to trust one voice, how can I steward that relationship well enough and bring as much as what I think they're going to need to see their vision come to fruition as possible? So that's kind of been the progression. You start and you cut your teeth and you get in your licenses and you get in reps. And then now I feel like I've had way more than 10 years specifically in this part of the industry, but that's about where I'm at. So I'm excited to see how the Lord continues to develop that. But I think the vision has always been there of like, how can I take potentially a very confusing and sensitive portion of someone's life and through a ministry opportunity, bring confidence and clarity to their financial game plan?
Absolutely. I like to think that we have all types of industries listening to our show, Mikey, and you kind of have come up through an industry that is known for when you get started in it, you're young, you're supposed to make these relationships, but you're in your 20s, you just don't know a whole lot of people that have a lot of money. Yeah. And I mean, quite honestly, these are the years that we started interacting as colleagues and business associates. And so how has that journey been for you? Maybe we have someone listening who's kind of early on in that industry and thinking through this, but how did that work for you to go from the cold calling to now it's more of a referral based type of project?
Well, I think one, it's to not shy away from the difficult stuff that when you get into an industry, and everyone can probably appreciate this in their own respect, there's always things that you hear that when people retire, they'll be like, so glad they don't have to do that anymore.
Right.
And I just think curiosity is a great approach to that, because it's like, why? Why do you not want to do that anymore? Because what I know is, again, going back to all the basketball training and everything else, is if people don't like it or they find it difficult, probably 80% of folks aren't doing it with any type of consistency or follow through. Yeah. So pursue those gaps, because just by doing that, you're probably in the top 20%. Mm-hmm. So I think that kind of general approach. And then the other encouragement would be to get insight and mentorship and advice that isn't coming through the same employer. So honestly, Jeff was huge in me understanding like, wow, if I'm working with business owners, I'm coming in thinking, here's what I can do for you from a wealth management and insurance standpoint. But a business owner's biggest headache is the IRS. Yeah. So it's like, okay, so how am I tailoring the conversation? Am I partnering with folks like Jeff? Am I understanding what some of these nuances of dealing with this type of clientele or headaches that a business owner is dealing with? And am I getting a firm understanding of what my clients experience in? So the mentorship is huge, the pressing into the difficult stuff. And then I think, especially in your 20s and early 30s, being humble enough to know like, hey, I may not have it all figured out. So let me just keep asking questions. Is this the right place to be long term? And that's not to say that the place you're at right now, if you're in your development season, isn't the right place for you right now. But what I have tried to be cognizant of is when I feel like the Lord's calling me to the next thing, or if like grace has like left this particular area for one season, or if there's been a shift in the way leadership is doing things, and maybe it's time for me to call out the next level of leadership in myself and pursue that, right? To go from an employee to a business owner myself. And so I think all of that just comes down to humility and a willingness to do difficult stuff.
A willingness to do difficult stuff and a willingness to be able to examine yourself and see what you're learning and what you're going through at the same time. All right. So as we kind of transition, Mikey, I want to make sure that we're able to communicate your mindset in some of this stuff. And I think you addressed it before a little bit, but just so everyone's clear on what they're hearing, because you talked about your holistic approach, and I was going to ask what your superpower is when it comes to advising, but I think that's kind of it. But what's your real why behind taking care of your clients?
You know, I think going back to that story at ORU where I had the Moses and the burning bush moment, the reason I had that thought is because I remember sitting there and learning what certain abbreviations or terminologies meant and thinking, if my parents would have had this knowledge and insight and understanding, it would have completely changed that dynamic. Because I know it was an area for them that was tough. Neither of my parents came from any type of money. My mom was the first in her family to go to university. And my dad completed a college degree, but much later in life, kind of as a non-traditional student. And my mom's this like frugal, Scottish, precious little woman. And my dad is from Las Vegas and has a kind of materialistic want for nothing. So I saw firsthand the stress that money can cause. But I also realized, like, we're not necessarily hurting for money. Like, we take summer vacations and I have basketball shoes and, you know what I mean? Like, we're being told no if we ask too much, but we're not being told no, like we can't afford that. So my why was, how could I potentially be a proponent of positivity in an arena that causes most people stress and hardship, or they have a poor narrative around it, right? How can I help reshape the narrative? And honestly now, and so that was my why kind of coming in, and that still exists. But now getting to be in this kind of leadership role, growing a firm, it's like, how do we redeem an industry? Because I don't want to be just like a good Christian guy in the industry. I want people to have an experience with myself or our firm, and it be such a night and day difference from what they're expecting or what their assumptions are. I watched Wolf of Wall Street and I thought you guys were all terrible, right? Like, how do we just start to shift the mindset about what it's like to work with an advisor? And then also, like, how do we make sure that our office reflects the community around us? So we're pulling people from all walks of life and speak multiple languages and all those kind of things so that we can better serve the folks that are walking through our doors.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Ladies, before we shift to the mindset, is there anything that you want to follow up on or wrap up on here in this area?
I'm holding out because I know what's coming. So
okay. All right, Maze.
I heard something that not many people say anymore. You did probably the scariest thing. You picked up the phone.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, it's true.
I pick up the phone, and Jeff and I used to go back and forth. We've been working together really closely for a long time. And I'm more of an activator. And I was like, just pick up the phone. Let's call him. Let's call him now. Why don't we call him now? Now's a good time. And Jeff he's very thoughtful in his process, and he needs to have a plan. It's got to be really intentional.
And
whatever it takes, man,
courage.
Whatever it takes. But it is, a phone call takes some courage. And you said curiosity and courage. I think just what we've said so far is going to go a long way with someone who's listening and needs a great shot in the arm. So yeah, it's very cool.
Christy, can I give a quick story on that? Because
yes.
That was developed over time. I had an incredible business mentor. Like I said, when I was in grad school, I worked at a State Farm office. And so the guy that was running the State Farm office actually used to be a car salesman. And you can imagine, right? People are like, oh, used car salesmen, all this kind of stuff. But he had that skill set,
yes,
but he had a very genuine heart, and he was a man of integrity. And so it was kind of this like unique collaboration of it. And so he saw how hard of a time I was having, like making the sales call. And he'd go through the quotes from me. He's like, Mikey, you're saving this family $40 a month. Just tell them. Just pick up the phone and tell them. Right. And so he noticed that I would like continue to talk and almost talk myself out of it. And in doing that, talk them out of an opportunity to save money, right? And so he sat by me for probably weeks. And he was like, I want you to call them back, greet them, have the conversation, tell them what the coverage is, and then tell them what the cost. And when I got done saying the cost, he would hit mute. And he was like, say whatever you want in the phone now. It doesn't matter because they can't hear you.
Great. Oh, I love it.
That.
And he was like, what they used to tell me in the car dealership industry was the first to talk loses.
Yep.
And he said, that's one way to look at it. The other way to look at it is you're going to throw so much information at them. They don't have confidence and clarity. And so they're not going to move forward, even if it makes sense. So do yourself a favor and do them a bigger favor and just shush. And through little experiences like that, I'm like, okay. And that's where you get the confidence to pick up the phone and those kind of things.
Awesome.
My wife's a lot like Jeff, though, because the conversation could go 3 or 4 different routes.
Yes.
I'm thinking about the way I think it's going to go. And my wife, Olivia, has got like, well, if it goes this way, I'm going to say these things. And if it goes this way, I'm going to say. So she has to have like multiple scripts, like the give yourself goosebumps books where you choose which page you land on and then you go in a different direction, right? Like that's how she is. But yeah, I was just kind of forced out of me.
She needs a plan.
That's it. Hey, we're a great team. We're a great team.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Love it.
Awesome, Mikey. So let's talk about mindset. You kind of referred to it a little bit earlier about mentoring. Just talk a little bit about how that's a passion of yours and what you're doing where it kind of came from and what you're doing now to continue that in the workspace.
Well, I think, just over time, I have now seen the fruit of shifting a mindset, and I see how much is tied to the mindset. And I know this is, for some people listening, they may be like, oh, it's another person that's like, it's all in your mind. It is. You know what I mean? Like I came in, there was no business. I had no business coming in as a walk-on with no assistant coach vying for me to get playing time, to earn a full ride scholarship, end up getting a master's degree paid for, and also be able to go on missions and excel in business while playing. It was just a mindset shift. And then even when I fell short in certain areas within business or in my marriage or in parenting, having people like remind you, one, who you are in Christ and making sure you're activating your authority. Because I think that's one of the ways that the enemy just tries to neutralize us, right? It's just like, if I just distract them or have him think that he's not as powerful as he is, then he will just keep him on the sideline and it'll be fine. But having people kind of activate that next level in me, I think has been huge. And so again, no one in my family had ever owned a business before. And I own a business now. And so, it's just, it really does start there. And actually, I don't know if we were going to get to it, but that's what my TEDx talk was about when I had an opportunity to do that at University of Tulsa, is people go straight into like, what are the financial tactical moves I need to make? I saw this on TikTok. I saw this on Instagram. And it's like, well, it really needs to start up here. Where are you at today? What's the narrative been to this point in your life? Because whether you realize it or not, so much of what you do on a daily basis is habitual and it's happening in your subconscious mind. So if you want a different outcome, you have to constantly feed the conscious new stimulus until the subconscious starts to change over time. And it's a long process. But that's why stuff like, having Bible verses or affirmations that you speak every day, and honestly, my understanding of why that would work comes from my basketball experience. Not a good 3-point shooter, shoot a ton of threes in the off season. Now I'm a good 3-point shooter, right? It's just the repetition of the right things. Yes. It shifts things. And so that's, I think, what the mindset was like. The process and my approach to it comes from that. If it feels weird now, good. Because my mind is on a certain setting right now. So if I'm exposing it to a new level, it's going to feel weird for a while. The weird feeling is not an indication that I need to stop. The weird feeling is that I'm growing. Yeah. And so I'm expanding to a new level of thinking and a new level of me. And I think to combine that with, I was privileged enough to walk through an exercise that I believe Dan Sullivan, who's strategic coach, he owns the strategic coach coaching business. He does an exercise where he has people fast forward into their future. And it's basically like an end of life type thing. Like, hey, how long do you think you're going to live? And then add 10 years to it. All right. At that age, what has to be true in your relationships, in your faith walk, in your finances, in your physical well-being and health, and in all these major areas of life? What has to be true for you to say, I ran my race well. I've lived a life I'm proud of. I'm leaving something great for the next generation. That question opened up my mindset, because once you identify that, it's really easy to reverse engineer. But if you don't have a point B that's worthy of pursuing and chasing, we all just kind of wander around, and it's very easy to get distracted or discouraged or break a habit. And it's like, well, I don't go to the gym because my goal is to be whatever weight by the end of 2027. I go to the gym because I will beat my sons in one-on-one basketball until they get to high school.
Yes.
That's my mindset, yes. And so, you know what I mean? There's a different driver there that keeps me more consistent than maybe others that don't have that.
Okay. Did your dad beat you when you were doing?
Oh, 100%. Sarah,
fantastic.
The first time I almost beat him, he pretended the phone rang inside the house.
Oh.
He went in the house and never came back out. And I was working him, right? So yes. I think I was up by 2 points. It was like 7-4 or 5. And it was like 6-4. And I start dribbling right. and he goes to reach, and I put it behind my back, 1, 2, reverse layup with the right hand. I'm up 7-4. Phone call happens. Never see the man again. So yeah, absolutely. That is a hereditary trait that I will continue in. Yeah.
That is awesome.
And Mikey's not bitter about it at all.
Yeah, you can tell I'm still thinking about it. I was 15 years old when that happened.
Yeah.
Well, but I also think you have to have a strong foundation in your mindset too, because I know we've talked about being strong with your D1 teams and even in business, but you had to have really good foundational support for your mom and dad for you to move from the UK all the way to smack dab in the middle of the United States.
Yeah.
Does anybody in the UK even know where Tulsa, Oklahoma is?
They do now because Mike Manghum came in to play basketball. Yeah. Right. No, most people don't know where it's at. Maybe the Thunder has helped put Oklahoma on the map a little bit for folks that like basketball. But no, you're absolutely right. My mom came to Christ in her 40s. And so from that point forward, like what she has instilled in me, she's the prayer warrior. She's the interceder. You know, if you have something on your prayer list, you call Lynn Manghum.
Okay.
And you know what I mean? Something's going to start moving in the heavenly places because of that woman. And my dad, from a basketball standpoint, it was just like, hey, you're capable. You've put the time in, right? Like the worry and the nerves coming into a game is really just like the product of you knowing you haven't done the work. And so that type of encouragement from him, and then my mom just being her baby boy and feeling like I can do no wrong. And there's always a safe place to fail. And, you know, all that kind of stuff I think is huge. And it's something I'm trying to reciprocate with my own boys now. But yeah, I definitely so. Like knowing that I had the foundation of my family and their love and support. And even when I was dealing with that oldest child, golden boy syndrome, where it's like, I can't mess up.
Right.
We're like, just so you know, we know you're not perfect and you're going to mess up and we still love you. And I'm like, I wish I would have taken that to heart as a teenager, but you know, here we are.
I hear you.
So Mikey, you've been serving as a chaplain on the men's basketball team for a few years. What's that experience been like? And what do you feel like those student athletes, and we're not just talking about basketball, we're pretty much talking about any student athlete. What do you think they need most when they come out of college other than a job? Yeah.
Well, I think one, they do need the encouragement that there's translatability from their sport, right? And that's, I think, something, you know, my younger brother actually helped start something in ORU athletics called Mindful Mondays. And it was basically a space for athletes to come and talk about the hardship of being an athlete. Like, hey, I'm not a regular student. I have to do all this extra work. And if I fail, people are telling me I shouldn't be making my NIL money and, you know, all this kind of stuff. And so I think people understanding like, hey, you being an athlete, even though the ball has stopped, you already have an advantage going into the workforce because there's a work ethic and a level of commitment that you're used to that other people are just now developing for the first time. And so I think that's one thing that I try to instill. But honestly, you know, if I'm being candid, when I first was in that chaplain role, I remember being in that seat. And I remember trying to kind of encourage and hype the guys up and finding parts of scripture that they may be like, oh, that I've not heard that, you know, I've not been raised around the Bible. So that's a cool story. Like that doesn't sound like this soft, weird thing that I've, you know, heard about Christianity. Like, oh, you can be a Samson or a David or those types of things. And now I just, it's not that that's gone away, but I realize like they just need truth and they just need to hear the truth of scripture and I'll let God do the rest with it. Mm-hmm. So now I just try to be available to them. It's like, hey, I know this is hard. I think that's one thing that they appreciate is I can relate to where they're at.
Yes.
You know, I'll address in different parts of the season. I'm like, guys, you're coming down the stretch. I know your bodies are tired. I know you're beat up. And so even them like understanding, oh, he was here. He's done this gives me a voice that maybe other people haven't earned. And so I just try to not take that lightly. And so it's giving them truth, giving them stuff that can apply on the court, but helping them understand this is going to apply in life too. Like this is part of your manhood, not just your superstardom on the basketball court. And so that's the challenge for me now is to try to carry that tension a little bit, knowing that some people are very much following Christ, coming there to play basketball, and other people just came there to hoop and they don't care about the spiritual stuff. So how can we try to break through to those guys too?
Absolutely. Definitely a calling, Mikey. So thank you for all that you do. So Okay, the third M, dealing with what matters the most. Yeah. And we're going to talk about the three most important boys on the planet Earth that you want to mentor. Tell us a little bit about your family. I've always, Mikey, when we started hanging out, I think you were married. Right? I think you were married, but you didn't have any kids. Yeah. And now you got some. So tell us a little bit about your boys.
Yeah, so I got 3 boys, 6, 4, and 18 months old. People always tell us to keep trying for a girl or a basketball team. And so I tell them we tried for a girl twice, and the Olympics now has 3-on-3 basketball, so I'm done. But I love them to death. They're amazing. You talk about kind of what's driving you and the purpose. The first time I held Benji, who's my oldest, I'm like, life completely changed. I thought I knew what I was pursuing, and I thought it was a worthy calling, and it just added a whole new element to all of that. So there's nothing like it's my favorite thing in the world is to be a dad. So I love what I get to do with clients, but dadding is the best. It's the best.
Mm-hmm. So what do you think you're trying to get right as a dad that maybe I'm trying to sidestep around this the best way possible, but what's important to you as a dad that maybe you just never experienced while you were growing up?
All of it, Jeff. I'm a competitor. I'm trying to get all of it. I'm trying to get all of it right. No, I think so. My dad's kind of faith journey, the jury's still out, honestly, on kind of where he's at. So we can continue to pray for my dad and kind of where he's at. And that's a whole nother story for like his upbringing and what he experienced. Mm-hmm. So I completely understand. I think when I think big picture, the phrase I always come back to is like, I want to give my sons as clear a lens as possible to God the Father. Mm-hmm. If I help them have an easier time understanding the love of God, the goodness of God, and maybe why there should be a healthy fear of God, then I feel I've done a good job, right? Like I don't want them to have experienced me as their earthly father and be like, man, this thing that I'm being told to believe in church or as I'm reading scripture is like completely different than the guy I saw growing up. So that's a combination of encouraging them, loving them, correcting them where it's necessary, loving their mom well, having good friends around, because I know at some point everything I say is going to be lame, but if they think they have a cool uncle that I'm like, hey, Luke, go say this to him, and they come back like, Mr. Luke told me this and it's amazing. I'm humble enough to be okay with that,
Yeah, right.
So it's hard to try to encompass all of it, but I mean everything from them knowing, hey, you're a Manghum, what does that mean culturally, like heritage wise, you're an overcomer, right? Like this is just who we are, it's in our nature, but also like, hey, this is why we take faith seriously too. And being able to defend it in the world they live in. Like I'm a big advocate for young dads getting really skilled in dad apologetics. Okay. There's apologetics, which is being able to defend why you believe what you believe, but you're an expert when you can break it down in a way a 6-year-old understands. So let's get good at dad apologetics. You know what I mean?
There's a book there, Mikey, I think.
Yes. Hey, there might be. At least that's your podcast. Yeah. I don't want to compete with your crowd, but maybe we can.
Yes, you do.
Well,
that would be a good competition. Yes.
So, Mikey, I think we may be kind of building up to this next section here, but I think you possess kind of a different perspective than other guests we have had on the podcast over the last year or so. What I'd like to talk a little bit about is growing up in the industry and developing yourself as a professional in the industry. And it's not just financial advising, it's pretty much any industry. It's being a CPA, it's being an attorney, it's being a banker, whatever. In the past, we've talked about this, whether it's work-life harmony or how do you deal with, young families. But we seem to be getting the perspective from the moms. And so I want to come from the dad perspective here and just kind of talk a little bit about the struggle that you've encountered. We've all been there. You're trying to build, we call it a book. You kind of have the same thing. We're trying to build a book. We're young. I've got a young family. I've got kids. And if I have to go do this or I feel guilty, just kind of talk about that process that you and Olivia went through and are probably still going through.
Yes. I should say my wife began staying home after our second child was about a year old. So she's been home for almost 3 years now.
Okay.
Which has been a huge help. But there's still, I'll get pictures, they're going and doing fun stuff on off days. And I'm like, I want to be at the zoo. I want to be at the aquarium. But I know I have to work and I know I have to provide. So I think the reality is I do not have this figured out. It's still an ongoing struggle. If I don't get up super early and work out while everyone's asleep and I do it at the end of my work day, there's like, man, this hour could have been really impactful at home, but I also have to take care of my body. And so there's constantly like, when I'm doing this, I should be doing this. Like that is a very real thing that I battle. But what I try to do in terms of like where work cuts off, I did have the benefit of being in my industry and starting to cut my teeth before I had kids. And so a lot of the late night stuff you have to do, the early breakfasts, occasionally meeting clients on a weekend because it's the only time they can meet. Like you've not worked your way to the point of professional where people see you kind of like a doctor. Like people take time off to go see their doctor. The doctor's not hanging out till 7 p.m. to tell you have a head cold, right?
Unless you go to urgent care.
Time off and I help you retire comfortably, right? But
right.
But I wasn't at that point yet. Now, so I will say, like I got to do some of that to establish myself before kids were on the scene. And my wife was very graceful. She also worked full time too, so it worked. But one thing we always talk about is the only people now that are going to remember I work late are those boys. So I also am very clear on what it takes inside the business to move the needle. And so this comes back to like not being afraid to work. If I'm doing the things I know move the needle, I should be able to go home at 5 o'clock and shut off. Mm-hmm. And the other thing is the market's closed. So if you try, it's not like people are trying to get tax stuff to me on 3/23 and really it's on them that they didn't get it to you earlier, but now they're putting it on you. Like that's a whole different ballgame too. Then I continue to pray for you guys. But so I just decided ahead of time, these are my convictions and these are my non-negotiables. And so it's really hard in the moment to make that decision on a fly. But if you predetermined ahead of time, this is what's an absolute yes and this is what's an absolute no, it makes it a lot easier. The first no is always the hardest. Everyone knows that. But then it gets a lot easier. You actually enjoy it. I'm like, someone please ask me to meet at 6. No. And that's not, it's not that I'm not available to my clients. I think I take great care of my clients, but I try to win the driveway. When I go home and I'm pulling into the neighborhood and I'm pulling up, I know at this age, and I also know it's only a short period of time, those boys are going to be shirtless, ready for me to wrestle the moment I walk through the door. I don't wear normal slacks, guys. I wear those Lululemon stretchy pants because I don't even get an opportunity to make it to the bedroom to get changed, right? Like I have to be ready. And if I walk in on the phone and doing all these, it's just, it changes the atmosphere and I want to control the thermostat in the house. So that's all I'd say is have your convictions, know your non-negotiables, make sure you're taking care of yourself. I like to think about it as like phase 1 of my day. I get to be selfish. I get up before everyone else, try to get a workout in, get some quiet time in, because that's my time to fill up. The rest of the day, I'm pouring out until those boys go to bed. And then even then, my wife's a quality time person. So it's not like I can't just be like, hey, babe, you're beautiful. And she's like, wow, that fills my cup. Like she needs to sit and talk for an hour about stuff. And she doesn't need any solutions from me, which is the hardest conversation to have. And she knows, and I love her, but it's like, hey, you're presenting all these problems and I'm not allowed to give solutions. This is sanctification in real time. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is me growing in a spiritual sense in real time. So, so all of that, I'm dealing and juggling all of that. And I just try to do a good job of when I'm there with them, they get my full attention. They don't need to see me head down in a laptop or a phone. Honestly, my biggest fear is they'll do picture therapy one day and the picture is dad with an iPhone in his hand. I'm like, if I can just avoid that, it's a good start.
So I guess the question I originally jotted down was, how do you balance ambition with being present? And I think what I'm hearing from you is you've made some very conscious decisions about when you're going to do what. And so when you're working, it's ambition and you're all in, but you know where to draw that line and to be present.
Yeah. Because I mean, the primary ambition is to hear, well done at the end of the race. And I don't think the best version of me, I don't think I get to hear that if I shirked my responsibility on my primary ministry, but I crushed it at work. I just don't prioritize it that way. So
yeah, very good. Sarah, did we get to your questions yet? Or did you?
I already inserted that in. I just still think it's just amazing. I just find I'm just amazed at people that can just pick up and move across the sea And I mean, as someone who moved, I've moved my whole entire life until I got married to my husband. And I mean, we were moving every few years, and it does take a lot, especially as a kid. It takes a lot, but just to be in that place when you're 18 years old and it's inspiring. Yeah. You have a lot, you can see the mental and spiritual strength in you. Just in that. I think that's a huge part of it.
Very cool. KP, do you have anything as we start to transition to a close?
I think we better close, because if I start, I'll just keep going all the time.
Christy has this way of asking 5-minute questions that get very deep, right, Christy?
I love it.
I like people.
I like
the story.
Mikey, just a great topic of conversation, great insight. I don't want to wrap this up without people having the opportunity to know how to contact you. So what's the best way to get in touch with you? We may have someone listening who goes, boy, I really like what that guy has to say, and I might want to engage him. Or maybe I'm a young person and I need more insight and wisdom. How can someone get a hold of you?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the best place to reach out to me is via email. So my email is just mmanghum, MMANGHUM @regentprivatewealth.com. And then other than that, I mean, if people want to connect on LinkedIn, that's great too. I try to post occasionally articles on kind of the mindset part of money. So if that is of interest to people, you can catch an article every so often on there. That's pretty much it. I'm not on social media a ton, other than to like keep up with what's going on in basketball and maybe giggle at some slapstick humor. So I don't have this big Instagram following that I'm trying to create or anything like that. As you guys know, compliance in our industry makes that kind of difficult anyway. Yeah. So email or LinkedIn is probably the best way to get a hold of me.
Mikey, we'll tag you too when we post the, awesome. We'll tag you so people will know.
Thank you.
Well, Mikey, we mentioned earlier we have 2 traditions on the show.
I've been thinking about it. Yeah.
And this is the second one we always wrap up our shows with
rapid fire.
Oh, snap.
Wow, you guys are really good at that.
Okay.
Yeah, really good at that.
Let's take a little sip of this energy drink right here.
Okay, here we go.
This is the other way I stay engaged at home, you know?
Who is that? What is that?
Bloom.
Just a Bloom energy drink. Yeah, Bloom. If you want to send some sponsorship cans, that's great with me.
We're looking for sponsorship all the time. So we're trying to get Effingham, PT, and now Bloom. Okay.
Yes.
And I think, Mikey, we do this every episode, and I think I'm calling this the Mikey Manghum edition. So, all right.
Okay.
Question number 1. What's one English delicacy that Americans cannot get right?
A delicacy you can't get right? I mean, you don't attempt a lot of fish and chips, though. Just terrible. You guys do a terrible job of fish and chips.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mikey, who's your favorite royal?
Favorite royal?
Yeah.
My mom.
Great answer.
My mom.
Okay, Sarah, who's your favorite royal?
That's a cop-out.
I know, it was a cop-out. I like the next generation, so William and Kate are my favorite.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Those are 2 royals.
I know, but they're one. They're married.
Yeah, that's right.
I did enough listening to this on my wife's podcast while we were driving over spring break. So I got the whole lowdown on the spares, the royals, everything.
Yes, I love it.
All right, Mikey, what do you want to spend money on but just can't bring yourself to do it?
Oh, shoes. Shoes.
That was quick.
I would be a sneakerhead if I would allow myself to be. But we already have one person in my marriage that likes to spend, so I've got to.
Okay. Yeah. And we're not saying who. We're not saying who.
No, we're not saying who. No, yeah.
Probably Benji. So, okay. Chamberlain, Jordan, or LeBron?
Oh, my gosh. Oh, I'm a 90s kid. I grew up in the 90s, so I've got to say Jordan.
Okay. All right. Good boy. Good boy. All right. Last one, Mikey. Who's your final 4 for the 2026 bracket?
Oh, this year.
Everybody's grabbing their bracket.
He's got data.
That's a great question.
I'm going to compare.
Who did I just text that to? I know I have Arizona and Houston in the championship game, I believe.
Okay, which would be a rematch of the Big 12, right? Big 12 championship game.
And I think if it happens, I think Houston gets them this time. because they got embarrassed pretty good.
Yeah.
Dang, who were my other ones? I think I had Michigan, maybe.
What about Duke?
That. And I had Duke getting upset.
Oh.
UConn was my other one. Because I think UConn would have to take on Houston. I think Arizona would have to take on Michigan, I think is how the brackets fall out. So yeah, that's my 4.
All right. Well, obviously you didn't have North Dakota State going all the way to the Final Four.
I predicted they get beat by 30 in the first round. Much love to all the NDSU fans out there.
Well, now that we've isolated all of North and South Dakota from our podcast.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Mikey, I just, again, want to thank you. It's such a great conversation, and just enjoy and love the insights, and I just wish you all the best with, as you mentor and as you lead, developing young men and women underneath you like that for those purposes. Just, it's a fantastic thing, and it's not the easiest thing in the world to do, as well as bringing up 3 young men. So you and Olivia have your work cut out for you. But again, thanks for being on with us today. If you're listening and have any questions for us, or want to reach out to Mikey and you can't get a hold of him, email us at podcast@cckcpa.com. Let us know what you're thinking. If you have any questions, any future guests, or if you just want to gripe at us, gripe at Sarah, podcast@cckcpa.com. As always, what are you shaking your head for there, Christy Porter?
That was my pen. That was no.
They can email Sarah. She can take it. She's got.
Yeah, I can take it.
Special thanks as always to CCK for the opportunity to use this platform in a slightly different way. To KP, thank you so much for always protecting the brand. To Robert Mays for his intro and outro music. Clarence Fisher with Tulsa Internet Marketing Services. And as always, Emily Johansson for helping us always get the ball across the goal line. So again, we're so thankful you joined us this time. We hope that you join us next time as these 2 CPAs get together to have a chat, and you get to find out who's on the mic.
The information provided on this podcast is for general informational and educational purposes only and does not constitute accounting, tax, legal, or financial advice. While we strive to provide accurate and up-to-date information, laws and regulations change and individual circumstances vary. Always consult with a qualified CPA or professional advisor before making any financial or business decisions. The views expressed by the hosts and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of any organizations they are affiliated with. Listening to this podcast does not create a client-accountant relationship. By listening to this podcast, you acknowledge and agree to those terms.
And that's a wrap for this episode of 2 CPAs in the Mic. If you found today's episode helpful, please subscribe, share, and leave us a review. Have questions or ideas for a topic? Reach out. We'd love to hear from you. Email us at podcast@cckcpa.com.